Guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Lindsay and Ben.
Welcome to the Rooted Rainbow.
Yes. And so we have some conversation for you today, and we're going to hop right into it. So, Ben, you want to get us started?
Hopping like a bunny. Yeah, I started reading the story of the Nazarite in the book of Judges, and it was about the Nazarite vow and what was required of the Nazarite and the obligations that he had to fulfill when he took that vow as a Nazarite. I kind of got the revelation about, uh, it was a lot of work. And so many people back in the day, like Old Testament Bible, the Jews, Israel, however you say it, um, everyone kind of wanted to be, you know, you know, seen as godly. They wanted to be close to God. If you were a prophet, you were respected. If you were a priest and you were doing sacrifices in the temple, you had a different, people gave you a different respect. And this isn't about gaining respect, and I guess maybe in a way it is.
Well, I think it's about gaining the idea of respect.
Right. God, the view of how God views respect and how the world, views respect, how you gain it biblically versus how you gain it from a worldly perspective. But I thought about, I learned that the Nazarite could go into the temple, which was uncommon for just if you're just a typical Jew, or if you were not a Jew, say a Gentile or someone from another land, a Samaritan or a Canaanite, you definitely were not allowed to go into the temple. And the Nazarites were. They actually had a nice little meeting place. I'm trying to remember what that was called.
They had a conference room.
They had a conference room. But they had a specific place for the Nazarites. And so I thought about how, everyone wants to look holy, and they want to go into the temple back in the day. But we all want to look so good and be so popular and be in the holy of holies, but we don't want to put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not talking about, doing works to get close to God.
Right.
It's not what we're talking about. But
it's the appearance of doing works. It's the appearance of the religious type actions that were highly esteemed back in those days.
Yeah, I can truly say from my heart, the more time you spend praying and spending time with God, you can do a little we'll call it a growth track. You're growing with God and in the Word if when you realize you're beginning to enjoy keeping the things you do for God and for the people more of a secret.
Mm-hmm.
When you keep those things quiet and to yourself.
That's what Jesus did.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, how many times did he perform a miracle and was like, don't tell nobody,
Multiple times, more times than it reads, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, that's for someone who's watching this. If you want to, and we all want that from time to time, like, am I making progress? Am I going anywhere? What am I doing? And like, just ask yourself that question is, do I really enjoy doing things for God and people and not having to tell other people about it? Like, oh, guess what I did? I helped a homeless person today. Or can you just keep it to yourself and no one's ever going to know?
I definitely like doing things for God, but I think I enjoy doing things for people less, even if it's like something that's God related. I feel like if someone really needs help, it's like, okay, I'll help them, with like the Spirit of Christ that's in me. I'll be like, okay, this is a need, I'm going to go help to fulfill the need. But if it's just more general, like helping someone with something that's like God related, just because they can't figure it out on their own, I feel like I'm a lot less likely to do it. So I'm just like, you need to figure it out yourself. I don't know if that's really the right like mentality or not. But when it's just between me and God, like the things that sometimes He'll call me to do or call me to practice, or that's what comes to me a lot easier than I think sometimes working with people.
No.
But what you're saying with like the practice and like actually putting the work in. That's what this says in Mark, that if you want to be known as great, you have to become a servant first. So you like put the work in first. Whoever wants to be first among you must be a slave. That is what the Son of Man has done. He has come to serve, not to be served. Not to have this appearance of, holiness and righteousness, or, even like in modern day times, it's like everyone wants to be kind of like known as a celebrity, but nobody wants to put in like the work that it takes to.
No one wants to put
get
2,000 hours into practicing.
Yeah.
What's a thing they do in acting?
Like monologues.
Yeah, a couple hundreds of hours of monologues, and what's the one they do on the spot?
Improv.
Improv.
Yeah.
Improv is really great for acting, and some of those actors put so much time in. But yeah, it's every. When I was wrestling, I put hundreds and hundreds of hours in the practice floor, the practice mat, and there's so many kids that would get so frustrated when they would lose, and it was just really simple. Like, I practice more. I practice all year long, and it's the same with any sport.
Anything.
Yeah, with anything.
Literally anything.
The people that win, and we're not on win subject all of a sudden, but the people that win are the people that practice more most of the time.
Yeah.
And
that's what I tell people all the time. They're like, oh, I could never do that. I could never be an aerialist or acrobat. And it's like, you could if you practiced. Like, you could if you worked at it. But most people just don't want to.
I worked at it for a little bit, and I got a little good.
You got a little good. Pictures to prove it.
Yeah, I was up in the air, swinging like a chimpanzee. Yeah, it comes back to the whole Nazarite, the story of Samson. And by the way, the Nazarite story is the story of Samson. You can read that, the story of Samson, who was a Nazarite, really from birth. That's in Judges 13. Just start chapter 13 in Judges, and you can read the story of Samson. And his story about him was his great strength. Lacked a little bit of wisdom, but the end of the story is really good. And he came back to the Lord and gained his strength back, which is where his strength came from to begin with. And, it's all about, people wanting that glory and that, like, look how good I am. Everyone wants to look like a priest. Everyone would love to have a big old crystal plate. That's what the high priests had. Big old plate of rocks, crystals, gems. They had a really dope little robe going on with tassels, and they were looking good. They looked like they were high priests. It's interesting how you've got the king and the priests, and the kings were never allowed to do the priests' works, and the priests were never allowed to do king's work until Christ, and Jesus became king and priest, and so he brought them together as one, which is what he does. He brings people together as one. Like my wife in here, we're one with Christ. It's all he loves to bring people together, and that unity is so important to him. That's really where the power is in unity, and in serving, which is probably the next point. And my wife is able to talk about serving a lot better than I can because she's a better server than I am. And I can admit that. I have a lot of work to do when it comes to serving and having that servant mentality. It's easy to want to be served. And I kind of want to say it's a man or female thing, but it's really not. It's really just an ego thing. And so what do you think makes serving easy to you? What have you learned?
I think what makes serving easy, and it is easy to me, it's easy in some ways. So I serve within a kind of structure that I've set forth for myself. So, for me, I'm someone who needs kind of like a timetable of commitments. So I know where my time is going to be. I have a schedule. And past that point, I have faith in God that He's going to use my time in ways I can't even imagine as a person. So I don't even try to rationalize the fact that is this going to affect anyone or not. Am I going to really make a difference? Is anyone even like benefiting? I don't even think about that. I just put that faith in God and His process, and in our church and leaders in our church, and I trust Him. And because I trust Him, it's always my time is well spent. And so I don't even think about the process anymore. I don't think about like I was saying, I don't think about is this mattering to anyone. I know that it is.
Like, what is this really doing? Question mark.
Yeah, that's never a thought that comes into my head. I know that it's making a difference. I have faith in God, and I have joy doing it. And like that's it. That's as far as my thought process goes with it, and the rest is just doing.
So the biggest difference between you and I is that I'm looking at the outcome way too much, and it's really easy listening to you. I can see that immediately in me where I'll run camera sometimes at church, and I'm like, what is the outcome of this? I know some people get to watch it overseas or somewhere around the country, but I'll struggle. And also because it hurts your neck a little bit, but I'll struggle with the outcome. And I'm like, how is this part of my destiny? Mm-hmm. But it is. Mm-hmm. And so that's really part of the knowing. And I will struggle with the outcome and the faith and maybe even hope of that it will impact. I do hope that it impacts people when I'm studying the camera and getting, Pastor Benjamin on there. I'm Benjamin, and we have a pastor named Benjamin, so don't get confused there. And so, I think that would be something I need to work on, not so focused on the outcome. And again, it might be that ego, selfishness, being like, what is this doing for me? Maybe it would be easier if I was trying to have a cameraman career, and then I would be able to rationalize that a little better. But since I'm not trying to become a cameraman, it becomes a little jumbled up in my
it's not for you
heart and emotions. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate you sharing that so I can learn from it.
Mm-hmm. But like a place where you are that I feel like it's easier for you to serve is you serve better outside of structure sometimes. And so, whereas I kind of need a predictable like schedule to, my heart is in this, I'm committed to this thing. And like, I know God will have it. You're better at working outside of the box with, maybe you're doing something during the day and you meet someone who like really needs to be ministered to. And like, you'll take the time and you'll stop and you'll speak with them and like, like speak to their heart. Whereas like, that's not my forte,
Something I really struggled with, it even happened today. They were closing the beach down today. Real strong currents, and President Trump is in town, and there's a shark migration, and who knows what's going on. Some conspiracies going on, and you can make up your own. They're fun. And they were kicking people off the beach that lived in our condo that were kind of on the beach, the public beach property, but etc. People were getting jealous. How come they can be on the beach, but we can't? Yada, yada. The lifeguard he wasn't yelling. Is that authority that he had to tell someone you need to get up off the beach. It's closed. And the person got upset, and he just went right back to his authority. Mm-hmm. And that he knows that he has. And, and so I looked up the word authority, and it has to do with setting an image, the ability to influence. And I was thinking, how does that, I know I got off subject from the beach story and something that happens with my ability to serve. I'll go back to that actually. Let's just reverse that real quick. And so Lindsay will sometimes just leave when I start talking to somebody. And a lot of times I do want to, who are they? What's your name? You want to talk about Jesus? Who knows where I'll go with it. And I'll just turn around and I'm like, where's my wife? She's gone. She's bye-bye. She doesn't know this person. She has no intentions to carry on a conversation with them. But
it's not like I don't want to know them as a person. It's just that the idea
right.
of knowing them right then and there in this very moment, I'm just like, this is too much.
It's simple for me. I get it from my mom, and so anyway, I struggle with that. I don't get so upset anymore. I still get kind of where'd my wife go, and I'm like looking around still sometimes, and then I'm like, oh, she decided to leave. Okay, and so now we'll fast forward back to the other point with setting that image. I wanted to figure out how does servanthood, being a servant, have authority and set an image up, or set you as an image up to be an influencer. And that was a kind of a trippy thought. I was like, because when we think of authority, first, if I say authority, what are the first two things that come up in your head? Ooh, someone.
Authority, I think of like law enforcement.
Think of the popo, you think of government, you think of presidents, you think of...
Yeah, the ability to influence.
Putin.
Which makes sense,
Right.
Don't disrespect my authority.
But how does servanthood represent authority? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but what's the question?
Can you be an authoritarian and be a servant?
How is an authority?
Well, I think actually, serving in itself is authoritative because by serving, you are by definition working outside of yourself. And so because you're working outside of yourself, you're doing something that influences someone, but it's in a positive way,
Right.
know? And so serving in its very nature enacts authority. But it's definitely not our definition of authority that we kind of think of
Right.
at first, You don't see someone like serving on the church band and like, doing practices and things like that and be like, wow, like they have such great authority,
Right.
It's like, look at Michael playing his guitar. He's like so authoritative. It's like, no, but it's like it is in the spiritual sense that it's, his time and his ability to serve is influencing people.
Right. You are, as a servant, you are an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ever wrong to influence people to serve?
What?
There's a question.
To influence people to serve?
I know the answer already. I don't think it's ever wrong. It's like, can you ever be wrong for inspiring someone to love?
No.
Right. And so it's like, can you ever be wrong in influencing and motivating people to be more servant-hearted?
Well, I think in the church, if it's done with the wrong intentions, you can.
Well, it can be used. You can use it as manipulation, or eventually come to slavery, which is basically servanthood.
Yeah.
But
But I think if it's done by someone that's
But it's that willingness to give up your own time and maybe do you give up authority to serve?
No, I think you gain authority by serving.
You gain authority when you serve.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange how my mind is getting pulled when I think of authority and serving.
Yeah.
It's really stretching it.
Mm-hmm. And then it's like, so then it kind of comes full circle actually to really our main point is like, the people wanted to be known as being authoritative by, the priestly robes, they had the ability to be in Nazarite, take the Nazarite vow, but many of them didn't. And it's like, they wanted the authority, and then the word says but that authority really comes from serving. And so really it all comes back full circle. Mm-hmm. So it's like to really, to really have the authority, not to look like you have the authority, but to actually possess the authority that you really want, to have that influence over people that positive sphere of influence, it comes from your heart to serve. And it doesn't come from the way you act or pretend to act. It comes from like the work and the practice that you put in.
You want to look good and you want to have authority. It's like, I know Christians out there that are like, they want their goal is to, preach the gospel and heal as many people as they can and serve the Lord and, show Christ and his power all the way to the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And there are Christians getting martyred, right? Like today, that will be martyred for the sake of Christ. And, that's heavy stuff. The Christian is still the most martyred person on the planet. That's a fact. You can go look it up yourself, Google it. And
so on that note, thanks for joining us, and we will see you in our next video.
Bye, guys. Love you.